I think after the hot debate on career path for testing and growth and all that, I thought it's further good to reinforce the concept that testing is growing big time in India, not just in India, globally. And how do we see this as 14 trends? So typically 14 trends is too many. So I thought we'll segment into two different areas. One is on the business side. What are we seeing from the growth in different segments? The second area is more on the technical side in terms of, for example, the methods, tools that are being adopted. So that will be covered by Rajesh. So broadly, 7 trends each. So you typically have management jargon, 7 habits of effective people, 7 QC tools. So all of these are 7. So we thought 7 into 2, 14 trends in business and the technology is what we would cover. So that's just to put in context. So I think just to start off, I wanted to give an overall landscape of what we see testing. So testing, like I mentioned in the opening, it started initially with product companies, Microsoft being one of the first to invest in testing in a big way. Anybody from Microsoft here? Yeah, okay. Using Microsoft. Okay. So I think a lot of you use Microsoft now. Oh, you're a vendor for Microsoft. That's interesting. So I think they were, in fact, maybe you will be able to share how much ratio right now. But they were the first to do this 1:1 developer to tester, because the initial products had a lot of issues and they put significant investment in testing. That's when actually the industry also grew big time from a testing. So way back, even testers, I think they were a bit hesitant to say I'm a tester. But what has happened in at least in the last 5 to 6 years is they're an extremely proud group, because we do our interviews in and out for testing. We have a practice of around 70 people in the testing area. And when we do interview them, almost the first question I or Rajesh ask is, do you want to make a career in testing? And the answer that we get is very emphatic. I think many of them have shifted from development to testing. Some of them have actually started in testing. They passed out of college. Then the organization decided that, okay, we'll put some of them into, and then they would have. And then what happened is they started making a career out of it. And today, if you ask most of them, they would say, okay, we are really excited. We don't want to shift base. We see that. That's one thing that we have seen. So with that in mind, the industry is today about 120 billion USD, a fairly big industry that we have, and growing at around 20% annually. So this, while the IT industry growth, any idea of what's the growth in IT industry globally? Any number? Around 3%. Okay, not bad. It was negative for a couple of years. It is growing at 3%. But what has happened is the testing carve-out has happened in terms of others, and in terms of the investment that's happening in testing. So that's growing at around 20%. At a CAGR to 15 to 20%. The vertical that we see the significant investment is in the BFSI segment. BFSI segments invest about 10% of their turnover in IT. We have our friend from HSBC, he should vouch for it. That 10% of the turnover of the organization is invested in IT, and that almost like 20 to 25% would be invested in the testing side. So that's one area. Then of course, life sciences, retail, government, manufacturing. Then what has also happened is, there have been many failures that happen in the testing side. For example, there was a bank in UK where they had a shutdown for about 2 weeks because the applications, or the online applications, were not accessible. So they had to provision almost like 300 million pounds to pay out to customers. People couldn't access their account. So that's one example. Recently, 2013, you've all heard of Obamacare? Okay, so Obamacare was launched with big fanfare, and I think all people, first day there was registration, and absolutely it was a big failure. And the first news came out that they had employed an US organization with an Indian entity to test it. And they found that the programming was not done. So I think a lot of these kind of failures also have created this market because people don't want to hear bad news. Recently in India, the Bombay Stock Exchange, I think it crashed by about 300 points in a day because the software wasn't working. So I think all the brokers would have sold their share on that day. And typically these instances happen, people wake up to it. They don't want bad news. And testing as an industry has taken off because of that also. So the demands in the area of testing is manual still continues to be a significant area. Automation as an area is coming up. And of course, many of you have heard DevOps. Anybody applying DevOps? Nobody applying DevOps. Okay, this is the next concept that is going to come in terms of the integration between the development world and the infrastructure or the release world. Typically what used to happen is, in the previous world, there were two compartments, software developers and testers in one, and then you have the release as the other one. So today what they're trying to do is combining all of this to do faster releases. So this is one thing that is coming up like the agile world. So you might want to take, and this will have dimensions for testing also. So that's, in that world, automation is playing a very critical role. So automation is one. Performance testing is another critical area. You have a site like Flipkart, or you look at Amazon, the number of concurrent users, or look at one of the most accessed site in India would be the railway site. You have the IRCTC, which has concurrently maybe about 15-20 million accessing at one point of time. Just see the amount of performance testing that needs to be done on that. So that's another area. And the emerging area that we see, especially from KPMG, is two areas. One is cloud. There is a lot of hype about cloud. Now, I think all of us use cloud in a way because we use our Google, Google Mail or Yahoo Mail. All that is in the cloud. But today, if you look at, organizations are very comfortable moving to the cloud. US organizations, at least, the trend has happened that everything is moving to the cloud. So this will be a trend, but from a testing viewpoint, we need to see the dimension. Application functionality still needs to be tested, but availability, the network part of it, all that is the other component of testing that will come in cloud. So all applications are moving to the cloud. A classic example is, have you all heard of Salesforce? Okay, Salesforce is an application used by majority of the Fortune 500 companies. It's on cloud. So people are willing to put their data in the cloud right now. There is another company called ServiceNow doing very well. They are in the cloud. So HR function has moved to the cloud. So you will see that happening, and that's the other trend. Of course, the mobile we talked about in the morning, in sense of connected devices, Internet of Things, that would be the next shift that would happen. All our mobile devices would be get connected. Our instruments at home would be get connected. Today we have a Tata Sky. It is actually linking to a network, and then either the program you want to record or those things. And you will all dynamically see that. It will all connected to a single world. So if World Cup football is happening, you would be able to access from your device from here or anywhere. It's already happening. So this is the shift that's happening. And how does testing play a role in this? So that's just to set the context of what areas are growing, and from there moving on. Now, just to put some trend in terms of data point. So the other thing, Rosie, about testing is, there was a question asked in terms of, do we expect more investments in testing? At least 62% of organizations that were surveyed, this was world quality from a CIO insight, 62% said that there will be increase in the QA budget. So that's really good. And the other significant portion is the QA budget that has seen the shift. QA budget in 2012 was 18%, but today the QA budget is almost like about 25%, and it will only grow because significant investment in terms of mobility, those areas are coming up. I think that's one. So more investment in QA. I'll broadly come to the areas of investment as well as a later slide, but the investment in QA from a relative term is only going to grow up. And that would be to the tune of 28% of the budget of an IT organization. So that's good. Now, I also wanted to give the India perspective. So India, all of us are either working in a IT organization. How many of you are from IT organization? Okay, majority. How many of you are in the GIC segment? GIC is captive. Nobody wants to be called as captive, so it's a GIC. Okay, so GIC is the other segment that we have operating. So today, if you look at India, India is a leading destination for software testing. So at least 32% of the global outsourced testing is done from India, and it's only growing. The only one shift that I see is people initially used to travel a lot abroad, but with the shift in technology, I think people don't get so much to travel out to India, but most of the work can be done from India, outside, but from India. So I think one of the attractiveness of IT services organization was the number of trips that you could take abroad, but that's reducing because of the technology change that's happening. So right now, India constitutes about 15 billion USD in terms of revenue, growing at a rate of 20. So that's a fantastic. So IT industry in India is growing at around 10%, but testing is growing around 20%. So there are three sort of companies that are there. One is IT services, TCS, Wipro, Infosys, HCL, Tech Mahindra. All of them are in the testing space. They have significant portion of independent testing. That's one. The second is GICs. There are 750 GICs operating in India right now and growing a lot more. A lot of people are investing in India in terms of as a destination, so that will continue to grow. And of course, there are pure play testing companies as well. Anybody working in pure play testing company here? Like for example, Lab Labs, then you had ThinkSoft. There are the companies that are purely focusing on testing as an area. That's the third segment. In India and globally, BFSI and telco constitute the highest percentage. And what has happened, the other fundamental shift is that it has moved from staff aug mode to more of managed services. So initially it was more of having people in functions and testing, but that shift has happened that it is moving to more of a managed services with outcome-based engagement. So that shift is also happening considerably in this industry. So I think just wanted to say that India as a destination is growing and growing at a very healthy rate of around 20%. And this is from NASSCOM, which is the Association of Software Companies, and they have predicted. So they see significant growth happening in this area. Now, moving on to how is the shift of in-house versus outsourcing. So there are, this data gives that lot of companies are looking at outsourcing of testing. So it is the in-house is at this point of time around 40%. This is global organization. So the marketplace tends to be UK, Europe. Then you have US as still the predominant market for it. So 40% still retains, but if you look at external managed, staff aug, co-managed or fixed capacity, which is based out of a center in India, constitutes almost like 60%. So what you can say effectively is that 60% of work of a company is outsourced at this point of time. Those who are working in GICs here, they also follow a dual model. In a way, it is a competition to the IT services organization because they're setting up their base. But what is happening is 60% to 50 to 60% of that also is outsourced to companies. So companies who are operating from IT services here, there is a threat that is their revenue going to a GIC or a captive. That's not the case. Many of them still outsource, still in managed services. So that's the other additional revenue for a pure testing company or a service provider based out of India. And that's a business potential as well. Many people are focusing on GIC as a sector. So that's from the this rise in terms of the delivery model. The other aspect is centralization of testing. So lot more companies are centralizing testing at this point of time than having disparate group. So I think when testing started, they were embedded in different functions, like you have a vertical or a horizontal testing was within that. But you see the shift that many of the companies are carving out a central team which will do all sorts of testing, which will be including functional testing, regression, performance testing, security, those areas. So one shift that we are seeing is that centralization of testing. And if you look at this data, most of them, at least a significant portion of them have either a fully operating TCOE, test COE, they have started a third-party COE. So at least about 60% of companies have moved to a centralized testing. But one thing that needs to be seen is, with the DevOps coming in, how this reverse shift will happen. So in the DevOps area, they're saying that testing will move from centralized one to decentralized mode. So we remain to be seen. I think DevOps is a recent concept, maybe about 1.5 to 2 years. So we'll see that shift of centralization to decentralization happening. So, but at least at this point of time, more centralization than decentralization. Now, where are the QA expenditures happening? QA expenditures are happening in 4 areas: infrastructure, tools and software, human resources, and others as such. So infrastructure costs constitutes a significant portion of testing investment. And of course, tools and software, you have 3 broad areas of tools. One is test management tools. Anybody using significantly test management tools? HP and other ones. The second area tends to be performance tools. Yeah, performance testing, invariably you need to do using a tool. That's the second area of investment. Third is the automation, which is QDPs and some of the other tools that are available. And interestingly, last year when we did the survey, a different thing came up, the number of open source usage in this one. So can you just tell how much of ratio of open source tool would be used in the testing side from a number of instances? Because open source is, there's no cost to it, you can't put dollar value to it, but how much? Any guess? Huh? Okay, almost like 60% of people were using open source tools. So it is accepted. Even some of the established companies are using open source tools right now. So that's from of course, the human resources and the other areas. Of course, from infrastructure, there are other investments like simulator, emulator, cloud. A lot of cloud-based shift is happening even in the testing side. So renting performance testing tool or automation tool on the cloud. And if you look at today, IBM, HP, some of the leaders in the testing space have cloud-based solutions. So you don't have to buy the instance, only for that particular time you can do. Rent a device, those concepts. So test lab, I think all the major IT companies have their own test labs or test center of excellences by which they can cater to the international location. The other trend that we are seeing is, this is a significant trend that we are seeing in the industry, is the usage of process frameworks. Now, if you look at any area, initially it starts off work in the sense of a normal life cycle of activities, but when it matures, you would see the application of more and more framework, models, and method. So what is happening is, testing as an area, you will see a lot more effectiveness coming by usage of tools. That is the automation tool, either the defect management or the automation framework, because that is taking off the manual part of it. That is one portion of it. The other is being very effective using processes. So processes are one of the area that I think some of the companies might have to look at, is the TMMI as a framework. So TMMI is the test maturity model, which has 5 levels, and this is slowly becoming the de facto reference framework. And we wouldn't be surprised in short time that this becomes part of the contract of companies, that you need to have a TMMI level. So today morning, Tech Mahindra was one of the first companies to be TMMI level 5. Then I think ITC Infotech was assessed at level 3 a few days or few months back. I'm not sure of the time frame. So you find a shift that many companies are adopting TMMI. And that is not just IT services company. The IT divisions of many of the banks, telcos are looking at TMMI as a framework for process improvement. So from ensuring, I'm not saying that this will help you in business, that is definitely going to be one part of it, but would it enable better delivery of testing solutions to client? That is the enablement that TMMI does. There are other frameworks that are established, but TMMI is one framework where you can actually get yourself certified. The rest are good framework available like TPI ISO 9126, STEP, and some of the other areas. So this is one shift that is happening, and at least in the last 6 to 7 months, we could see this trend. Now, moving on to the areas of testing, I think morning there was debate on in terms of what are the areas. There was SMAC, that was the in thing, couple of years. SMAC, you all know as any? Social media, mobility, analytics, and cloud computing. So that was SMAC as the area for significant investment for companies, and that is the shift that's happening. And all of this coming together. All of us have Twitter account. Twitter, how many of you are on Twitter? Okay, now a lot more on Twitter than when you used to do the survey before. Facebook, I'm sure I can ask the question, who is not on Facebook? Okay. There are a couple of people who are not on Facebook? Oh, okay. Interesting. We'll have a debate on why you're not on Facebook. Okay. Mobility, so social media as a concept is kind of taken off. Twitter, during the World Cup recently, the number of Twitters on wins and other things would have been phenomenal. So that's becoming the world. Mobility, we discussed about how it's becoming an internet-connected work. Many of you are working while sitting here. So that's a mobile world that we have. And then, of course, big data, that is in terms of analysis. And even in the recent elections that we had in India, big data was used in terms of analyzing your profile. And when you go into Facebook, some campaign from Nandan Nilekani comes up. All that is big data usage. So, and then, of course, cloud, we are all very familiar. So that's there. But of those areas where we are seeing significant shift is the mobile space. So as testing also, we see that companies are going to invest in mobile because many of the applications that they have in their centers are moving to mobile. So timesheet data to reporting, management reporting data to HR systems, everything is moving to the data, to the mobile devices and in cloud version, and many of them connected. So this area, we are seeing significant requirement from companies to look at mobile testing as area. But last time when we did the survey, this came out as a equal between like cloud computing and the other, which one was it? The big data. But now a clear winner in terms of the mobility as a space is coming up, and we see significantly some of you can invest in that area because that can become a career path for you. So that's from the areas of testing. So I just covered the 7 core areas in terms of business dynamics that's happening. So just in summary that, like I mentioned in the panel also, that this industry is seeing a significant growth of around 20%, and it can only get better from here. And investments in newer areas like mobile, Internet of Things, device anywhere. So many of you have now these days devices which will tell you, any of you have it here, which you kind of look at how many kilometers you walked and all that, and this is connected. In fact, I was sitting with one of my German colleagues who had come from there. So what he has done is he has got this device around him, and he has put a set of people within his company who are competing against him. So every month, whoever walks the most or whoever is kind of covered the maximum kilometer, they have a celebration. So they're all competing against each other. And this device is connected to Facebook and other things. So they can all know how much each person has walked or so that device anywhere as a concept is coming up, and mobility would fundamentally shift for some of the areas that we are working on. So with that, I think I will hand it over to Rajesh to cover some of the technology areas. Rajesh.
So good morning all. My name is Rajesh. Ironically, while I'm talking about mobile, I'm rendered immobile because of lack of a mic. So what we are trying to do in this section is that, see, we as KPMG consultant are fortunate enough to work with multiple multi-brand companies. So most of them are in the cutting edge of technology, right? So, so while we work with them, we tend to visit their laboratories, work on the premises, and then get to see the latest of trends in action in their places. So what we try to do is get the best of those practices and then find out what are the good trends on the industry and then present it to you so that it is good feedback to the community as well. So these are some of the trends which we have collated over past experiences. And the first among those which I would like to bring among those is on early automation, right? We know automation has been there for quite a time. I mean, I actually was surprised when people hear what is there a role for automation tester? Is there a role for testers? I mean, these were the questions which I thought would be asked 10 years back, right? I mean, you shouldn't be asking questions like, is testing a career at all? You shouldn't be asking questions like, is automation is in thing or not? Automation is already proven, and automation is going places now. Now, having just doing automation is just one phase of it. Now, companies are moving towards early automation. Why you have brought it as a trend is that until now it was more of a theory saying that yes, you can do automation, you can do descriptive programming, you can do hybrid programming. But we have seen real life instances of these being applied in companies. We have been visiting one of the top 5 IT companies in the world. Believe it or not, they use 40% of their automation is early automation. Just to clarify what early automation for the people who are not initiated, early automation is where you even start scripting the functionality, get the object repositories, I mean, even the libraries all ready, even before the application is ready, right? The moment you have your requirements ready, you would actually have the coders will start writing your test cases, the scripts for your application. On the back end, your testers will not just write your test cases, they will also start writing automation scripts. These are application independent, object repository independent, and the moment you release an application into the production or to the testing team, they don't do manual testing, they straight away start doing automation testing. Believe it or not, they start doing it in the first cycle of system testing itself, even before they do a smoke test. Even automation is used for smoke test itself. This might seem strange to people because some people have done a descriptive program, but consciously you should be aware that in real life scenario, nobody does automation before one round of functional testing. So, but here you see people, even before they start manual testing, you do one round of automation testing. The benefits are huge, right? Why do you do that? A, you straight away reduce the manual test efforts, you straight away jump into automation, you are able to cover more number of scenarios, and all of this is integrated with the rest of the life cycle, right? How do you do it? There are multiple tools. I mean, Prasanth spoke about DevOps, right? So the moment you have a build created, the build is dumped into a core place, and then we have automation script which picks up the script, and then once you have the framework ready for the particular functionality, you just have to configure the object repository and start automating it. So we have seen teams doing this, and this is a good career path for people who would want to go into technical side of the automation, right? So obviously you need to have a tool which supports your descriptive programming or hybrid programming. This is not possible unless you have a tool which has your object-based repository. So I think currently most of the tools already have this, so it should not be an issue for most of you. The second trend, I'm sorry the slide is cut out on the other side. It's on the continuous agile trends. We've been speaking about agile. We know what a continuous integration is. So probably can somebody from the audience just explain what is a continuous integration? It is not repeated deployments. See, continuous integration is where the moment a development team finishes a piece of code, instead of having it ready, do a release-based automation, the code, once they say it's ready, it will be dumped into a central server. Probably it will be picked up for testing. This was seen as a trend last year, but unfortunately it's gone down the trend line. There are a lot of other new upcoming trends which have overtaken this, which is in terms of continuous deployment, which is one box above, and continuous delivery. Now what is happening is that now from agile, we are going to hyper agile mode, where you don't wait till the earlier life cycle in SDLC, you had a release based automation. So moment the development team finishes a group of functionalities, they dump it, you take it for testing. Agile, you narrow down the life cycle. Now you do story based development, where you finish a story, develop that application into application, and then both the tester and the agile developer run into sprint modes and start testing. But continuous deployment and delivery is one step ahead of this. This is kind of futuristic, where you don't need wait to finish a piece of code functionality. The moment you finish a piece of code itself and you feel it's ready to be tested, you dump it. You have an action, or you have a specific library, or you have a specific function which is if you feel it need to be tested. All the development systems will be configured to your DevOps system, and these DevOps system, the moment the developer checks in the piece of code, says it's ready, it will be turned out for testing, even if the functionality is not entirely developed. The reason why it's happening is that we don't need to test the entire functionality anymore. You just need to test a piece of code as a part of a sprint or agile, and teams have to be extremely agile to do that. And these are done in the kind of projects which are extremely high R&D kind of focus. So we've been fortunate to work with one of the top 1 or 2 IT industries across the world who are doing cutting edge development. And believe it or not, they don't have the time to wait for the requirements. They are doing deployments and requirements for the next generation technology where people are differently disabled or physically enabled can use this technology. They don't know what the functionality, how they're going to use. You have people who cannot see, who cannot hear, and they want to, and they are in the, they also would not want to be left out in the technology. And if you're developing a piece of application for them, there is no functional spec which can be defined, right? Imagine you are developing a mobile application for a blind person who's walking from point A to point B from his house to office. The application should be intelligent enough to guide him, plot the route, guide him to the route, find out what are the physical obstacles, and find out what is the navigation. Is he going left or right? Is there somebody walking by? Is there anything on his area of interest which is nearby? All of this integrated cannot be developed through a functionality, and that is where your continuous deployment comes into place. Right. Zero defect testing strategy. So I think when Prasanth was discussing on business, I think one of the critical focus areas was, yeah.
I have a question on your previous slide.
Yeah.
So you know like about the continuous deployment. So but don't you think it's like continuous
Agile team asked, saying that if you're doing some system testing, be it most to Agile-based testing, are you not putting pressure? But the need of the hour is not, the pressure is always be there when there's a shift in technology or in domain. Expect pressure. That's the only way to survive. The moment you give a mobile phone to your grandmother and ask her to make a call, she'll not even be able to make a call. Are you not putting under pressure? But it is a need of the hour. She needs to start using the mobile application. Same goes for us also. As a technology people, the one thing which Nitesh also was mentioning was that you need to grow. So, I think Sushil also was mentioning the same thing. You need to take in the pressure. It's only when you grow.
that will also compromise with the quality because
It should not compromise the quality, which is what, see, when I mean Agile, are you telling me that Agile compromises the quality?
not exactly, but there at least we get some time to complete the
Correct. The compromise on quality, you'll have to have checks and points to monitor that. I know your question, I mean, coming from you, all this question I expect when you do not understand how the mechanism works. So, in continuous delivery, it's not just you deliver a piece of code which is like does not have the complete functionality within. It does not follow coding standards. Yes, it has to follow coding standards. It has to be in a function which is completely workable, testable by itself. But assume you have a data structure. So in white box testing, you do your control testing, loop testing, data structure testing. Why do you have to wait until the end of development which I do test all of these things? If somebody defines a function action item, usually at the top of it you define all your controls, data structures, parameterization. Why do I have to wait till the end of the cycle to test these? Can't it white box test just go and test it when it's immediately defined and developed? And why do I have to wait till the end of cycle with the parameterization? So in a piece of code, all the parameters will be linked to each other. No parameter cannot be left alone. Why do I have to wait till a function is developed to do that? Can't I do the testing immediately? So you'll have to understand the concept, but it is not impractical or unacceptable. It is workable. I've seen, the reason why you put it out, we've seen this work in the business. It does put a pressure on the tester, but the tester needs to upscale in terms of time scale. But once you're used to that, I think, people who are following Agile and Scrum has been there for more than 10 years now, right? When it started, people were under heavy pressure. I've seen a Bangalore-based company in retail following Scrum 10 years back. They didn't call Agile then, Scrum or. They were following it, they were under tremendous pressure, but now they are at the cutting edge of technology because they are able to test things better. So it's just a matter of acceptance, knowing what you do and controlling it in the proper way, so the quality is not deteriorated. So I understand your concern. Right? So, but probably there are tools which does that, and then even the testing is not done by a manual tester. And the second part of it, it can be done by a testing tool also. We'll cover later on. It need not necessarily a person has to be there in the middle of the night, starting for a weight of code and start testing. It can be done through automation also, which relieves the pressure of the tester. So they are made modes to work on the pressure, but we can discuss on that. Right? I'll move to the next zero defect strategy. This is more of a business need, so where people are focusing on zero defects right from the phase one. So people have been talking about theoretically, but how do you do it? Instead of focusing on defects per phase, you start focusing on defects per activity per phase. So this actually have multiple modes of achieving towards. The driver for this is more of a business than technical need. So these can be done in terms of effective communication, people skills, process streamlining, use of technology and domain knowledge. So all these are pillars which will support zero defect strategy. The idea is to capture defects early, point to prevent defects from arriving. So when you see model areas like TMI, which actually support defect prevention, you are arriving at ideal state of zero defect, which actually is kind of ideal, but drives towards a business need of zero defects. I am conscious that we are short of time. So Nitish, how much time do you have? No, I think it's coming as well. So please spoke about SMAC. I mean, I was surprised people didn't answer for what abbreviation of SMAC was. So we already moved into the SMAC 2.0 even before people realize what SMAC is. In the previous, probably even about a year back, people were using these SMACs separately, individually. So social media was independent, where people log on to Facebook, Twitter, people log on to mobile for their mobile application or video calls. Then data analytics were done separately, and cloud was done separately. The next trend is going to be SMAC 2.0, where people use all of these together, right? In I guess people who are following elections, the last elections, would have realized that there was an online poll conducted, and the poll was, believe it or not, more or less closer to the actual results of the elections. So what stops you from the next generation from having every voter should have his individual ID, log into a mobile phone, vote from a mobile phone, and that is analyzed through data analytics, the results are published, and then you analyze which are the areas which go there, and then push it on the cloud where everybody can see the results. So SMAC 2.0 is the integration of all of these 4 individual entities, social media, mobility analytics, and cloud, into one single entity, and testing will be extremely complex to do this. People who are using Google will already be aware of this. So you have your Facebook. I guess the Facebook CEO, she visited, she had public announced that they were going to be doing analytics on Facebook profiles. So imagine the impact of this. You have almost, 50-60% of the educated people on Facebook who are decision makers, who know what they're going. If you start doing analytics on Facebook, the kind of impact in the marketing as the IT industry is immense. And testing that is going to be the next. So the person who's going to be testing this has to be aware of the latest technology and as well as the domain. He has to be conscious of what is the impact of cloud and mobility, the impact of all of those. And the kind of testers are not going to be manual anymore. It's going to be, they're going to be the automated testers and the performances which he spoke about. Smart devices, right? Technology is no more in your systems. It's everywhere now. People are no more carrying laptops, tabloids. They're carrying virtual devices. Prasanth mentioned that people use that step meter where you capture your steps every day. People have Google glasses where you don't have use screens. People have smartwatches which capture your pulse rate. They capture your. I've seen marathon runners use watches which track their movement, set it to the satellite, find the competition against the other competitors, and send it to a group where they monitor their performance as a group. You have smart table where you have Microsoft Enter Smart Table. It was the first thing we had used in a restaurant where you can make orders. The impact of technology is used. You have Apple Keynote, automated guided devices. Probably day before yesterday, we Google announced that they are taking in a Ford top executive into the Google top management so that he can aid the facility of guided automated vehicles. People don't need to have drivers anymore. You just need to have automated vehicles where you just walk in, the door opens for you. You'll have to speak of the destination, or even you just synchronize your calendar and the location of your calendar. The vehicle will synchronize with your calendar, find out where the destination, it will take you to the destination, find the nearest traffic with your Google Maps, all end-to-end without even the owner speaking a word of it, right? So imagine how the testers need to be competent to do this. I think one pointer to this, I think testers will no more be bound to your desktops. They will have to be out in the walking. They need to do testing with integrated devices. I mean, on the lighter note, I was seeing people, when I went to a top IT campus in Hyderabad, the testers were not on the floor. There were a group of testers. One was holding a satellite phone, one was holding a navigation menu, and there was one more holding a tracking device. You know how the blind people have the sticks? So it had a sensor at the end of it which tracks for objects in front of them. So all three, a group of testers were walking around the big lawn. It was a huge lawn. I mean, you know how IT campuses are. They're just walking around. I said, what are these guys doing? The person who was my point of control, these are a group of testers. They're testing a software. I think, what are they testing? I mean, so this is for people who are blind, deaf, and dumb. So for them to how to navigate, how to walk. So your testers will no more bound to be on the desk. So believe me, I think people who have fat bellies go to the gyms because you're not no longer be in a desk. You'll have to be on the field, and your job is going to be much more entertaining and interesting, right? So that's where your smart devices come into test. And when you start testing this, you will be enthusiastic. I mean, forget your career. If you like what you do, you will continue testing whether you are benefits or not. Right. I'll quickly cover multimedia and augmented reality. We all know multimedia is there in our phones, but it is now feeding into your augmented reality and virtual reality, right? You would have seen President Barack Obama driving an automated vehicle today morning. He's actually stepping into an augmented reality where people can learn driving. People can, the automated devices are self-driven. So it actually helps people drive more. But how do you test augmented reality? So you need to skill yourself into the domain. You need to find what are the latest technologies through automation to test an augmented reality. It is an extension of your existing reality. Your Samsung has come out with a curved TV, right? You have projector mobile phones which have projectors which projects to the wall. all these are components of bits and pieces of augmented reality coming into your real life. You would have seen this in movies. People would have seen Back to the Future 10 years back. There was a screen which shows that Jaws comes out of the screen and pumps onto you, right? It was so realistic, but that was a piece of fiction 10 years back. Now it's reality. You have mobile projectors which can project videos onto the phone, which can connect to each other. They have Samsung has your Smart Connect, where you can have mobiles projecting onto the devices, any device which phones nearby. All these are pieces of augmented reality, and these has to work. Imagine if these were implemented in a hospital care. Imagine a doctor who is doing an intricate operation and he cannot see what he's operating, but using a telescope or a probably microscopic device. But to see that, he needs a projector which projects be it a kidney stone or minor tumor in the brain, projected onto the. If the augmented reality does not work, you are dealing with a person's life in hand, right? So these has to be tested properly, and that has to be taken to augmented reality and virtual reality. Whatever we're discussing now was an extension of technology projected to you, but there is a totally new breed of technology which is developing in the back end, which is actually capturing all the data and then starting to react on its own, right? Artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is something which captures all the real-life data, be it your Facebook, and starts interacting, saying what is the best thing for mankind. It thinks for itself. It works on itself. It makes decisions for itself. Your emergency control. Suppose there's a tsunami coming up in the ocean. Your tsunami trackers. There is artificial intelligence which is developed, which captures the wavelength of the tsunami scene. It captures, finds out when is the tsunami is going to hit, and immediately triggers emergency lock gates. Dubai has lock gates prevented. Japan has this. So whenever tsunami comes in, it actually triggers off actions without even consulting human being. And these are life-critical systems. If an artificial does not work, I mean, there are multiple threats. I mean, imagine a solar flare coming and hitting on a satellite system, taking all our telco systems. You have triggers which artificial intelligence will monitor these, feed it to data analytics, and then start acting on it. So, but how do you test again? So testers need not be normal testers. These people are actually domain experts who sit on the field, understand the domain, and then start testing those. And you need to be a highly artificial and intelligent guy to do artificial AI testing, right? So to sum it up, I think some of the areas which we see the trend in the next generation testing is multimedia testing, risk-based compatibility and usability testing, continuous agile, testing for AR, AI, and VR, that is augmented reality, artificial intelligence, and virtual reality, and testing for SMAC 2.0. So these are some trends which we brought from the industry. Believe it or not, they are already in the industry. People are working on it. If you're not aware of it, you will be left behind. Please read up to it. Like Nitesh said, spend some 75 hours of your time in each of these. Your career will be better than what you thought it will be. Right? Thanks a lot. We will now open for questions. Yes, please. Unit coding, developing, and then system testing himself. So he laughed at that, back at me and told, isn't that what you were doing 20 years back? 20 years back, your developer was the only one who was doing testing, development, execution. Aren't you going back to the cycle, right? So on a lighter note, yes. But yeah, you would need to have those things. Any other questions? We'll take one last question, considering the time.
This is Gautam here.
Yeah.
What about model-based testing?
Model-based testing will be part of your continuous improvement. So model-based testing is just one piece of your entire life cycle. So what do? You have your requirements, you convert them to models, you help them to create test cases. So it is actually one component of your continuous deployment. So it is a part of this. So your model-based testing, your business process testing, and your automation testing are a part of the entire chain. It is just one link of the chain. But it is also, and model-based testing is no more a trend. It is already a reality. Yeah. Of
all the next generation tech aspects you are talking about?
Will definitely be there. So actually, if you see, we cover the length and breadth of testing, the width of it. We didn't cover the depth of it. Obviously, when I say somebody is doing an artificial intelligence testing, it has to respond properly. So we'll take the same example, probably tsunami warning system. So obviously, if it's triggering off, the system needs to be alert, and it has to, you know how it works. No? The wave passes through, it will measure the length of the wave across every 10 meters or 100 meters. The system has to respond instantly, right? Obviously, performance will be a part of it. Obviously, the types of testing will be the same. So you will have functional testing, you'll have performance, security testing, all of this built in there. Obviously, your tsunami warning system can be taken by Somalian pirates and it can be used for their benefit, right? Obviously, it has to be secure. So all types of testing is the layer which will be packaged in all of these testing types. How it is done would definitely be different.
As a niche vertical skill.
There will definitely be. Human tendency is always the need for speed. right? Going for the, so when you started, you had bullock carts, then you had mobile phones, which does, the outgoing call will take 2 minutes. Then you want media, which instantly, moment you post on WhatsApp, you need to be connected everywhere. The need for speed will always keep increasing, and the only way to satisfy need and ensure system works is only through performance. You have an excellent need, right? Okay. Okay, thanks a lot. Thank you, Nitish, for the opportunity. Bye.
From Wipro, there's a small change in the topic. His topic is not test paradigm. It's on impact of emerging technologies in software testing for BFSI sector. So that's what we have Mr. Singh from Wipro. He heads the business solutions department in the area of software testing. And this will be a combination of leadership plus technology impact primarily in the BFSI sector. There's also the next session going to start in the other hall that is on hacking and security testing. So feel free to, it's just going to start about a minute time.
To 65. And the similar question were asked to them also. So actually out of 15 people, only 1 people raised hand. Okay? So that you can see that something is changing in financial world, okay? But this is the situation today, okay? We are already into a job, we already have a families and all. Think 5 years down the line. Think 10 years down the line, what is going to happen? And that trend is actually impacting everybody's life. Testing is one piece of that. Another question to all of us, when our parents opened a bank account for us, for the first time, we were 10 years old? Any of us? No. Yeah, so 2. No, okay, 2 only. When we were 15 years old? 1. When we were 20 years old? Some more. Okay, rest is the, sorry. In our lives. So something is influencing all these decisions and why it is happening like that. Now the same question in another format. How many, the people who have, younger brother, sister, or even children, when we opened account or any policy or something for them, when they are 10 years old or 5 years old, we did that, right? How many of us we did? See the number of, the change, what is happening in the market. So these are the trends we should be watching. So what is happening 5 years down the line? So then let us go to some of these trends which will influence everything, whether it is mobility, whether it is shift left. When you'll say shift left, customer will say, I'll show you right, shift right. So all these kind of decisions are coming from these trends. So this is one research from PwC, so which clearly says that gone are the days of saving account and checking account. How useful are they for us? How many money actually we keep it there? Just for few thousand so that we can go to mall and pay some money and all. But rest of our money is somewhere else. Either they are in insurance or we have already invested somewhere. Okay, or it is automatically going to the loan amounts and all. Okay, so very soon saving account and checking accounts, they will not be available in the financial world. When my kid will go in standard 1, 2 and all, directly I'm going to open a wealth management account. It's happening now. We are doing, some of us, we are doing it. So then no more the functionality of those saving account, CASA and all, everything is going to happen. Straight away you are thinking the bank, financial institution has to think about lot more for you, what they are doing today. Today they are not doing much. They are opening few, selling you few policies. That is 80% of the banks today they are doing. But very soon your account will be opened once in your lifetime and the rest of the life will be managed by that account. You are going to school, you are going to college, you need money, then you open your company, you work somewhere, you became very rich, now you have an urge to donate, you do all those things, so everything will be managed. When you are getting older, how your amounts or your assets will be transferred to your, the child, so everything will be managed in that way. So that is where the trend is. So one wealth management area is something which is a very clear-cut trend, and that will change all your, the way of living itself, okay? The type of, when this will happen, so when we all were students, okay, some of us, we took loans, then very soon we became employees. Okay, our life changed, our demand changed, the type of policies or the type of products we used to purchase, it changed. All of a sudden we started to travel. So the nature of the card which we hold is changed. Then we got settled somewhere, we became NRI, and then we came back, and then we were looking for something, okay, which bank will take me as a special customer and handle my special needs. Then you see that all of a sudden you have to Google that where is the NRI branch of particular bank. You have all type of branches today emerging. Some branches are home loan branch, some branches are NRI branch. So this is going to go more and more deeper and more closer to the customer. So even you can say that a community-based branch or catering to only that particular segment of a student, that kind of branch. So the concept of the branch is going to change completely. Not only from the banking point of view, but also the insurance and the capital market. So it's going to change everybody's life. So these are the trends we should be watching. So these are the trends. Let us pick one or two example from this research. You can see that there is a very unique challenge in the middle, the graph, where loss of trust is mentioned as one of the key challenges in European geography, which is not there in North American countries, and then Asia also, that specific thing is not there. So these kind of thing also you should watch. So earlier, Prasanth mentioned that something happened in Europe. Something happened with one of the UK bank, and some more thing happened. Okay, $1 million is lost, lot of sue, and everything is happening. Okay, then so that geography is facing a different challenge. That people don't trust that kind of institution. So they have to build the trust. So you need to come into a league where your work is going to enable them to have more trust into the market. Okay. Regulatory, lot of things we have already spoken. Obamacare, we spoke about, Dodd-Frank, and lot of things are there which are going to stay. But the banks, they are feeling that a lot more flexibility will happen in going forward. So one of the thought leader, when the team was here, she mentioned that she is into the healthcare and all. So who best can know from them that what is the meaning of a regulation? If you are testing an application from medical world, and that is used in the operation or of any key parameter measurement when somebody is getting operated, you know what is the consequence of that. It's not only about the dollar, but it's about the life. So that kind of seriousness should be there in all of our work. Okay, so from this type of trend, I'm directly going to the place where some answers of our career-related, the concerns will come. I'm just skipping all the technology-related things because a lot of things we have already discussed. So this is one place we can see ourselves fitting in one or more of the quadrants. Okay, and then we can decide that what kind of career we should move next. And that will answer many of, not all, but many of our questions. So if you see, there is something called run the business segment here. So because a lot of questions were there from the career point of view. So I thought it will be good because we can see that how we all have been working. So yesterday I was working in TCS, today I'm working in Wipro. My wife is working in Cognizant, and all in testing. So you can see that entire generation of testing is present, and that is why all these discussions and all are happening. So we should always try to move towards the higher and higher quadrant of our activities. Every activity you do, you ask these 4 questions. Which quadrant my activity is going to go finally? And that always will answer the basic query of how strong I am going in my career. So that's all from me. Any questions? Okay, then.
I had Rinky as question.
Excuse me, can we just have your attention, please?
Yeah.
Yes.
He had one question. What is the role of metrics in testing? So the aspect that she was addressing is many matrices are requested by the senior management and not necessarily by the client. But what are the matrices? Plus, how do we make it meaningful? Rinky, if I'm correct, both the aspect of it is not dictated by the client, but more from senior management. How do we make it meaningful and how do we deal with it? That is Rinky's question.
Okay. So we'd like to take a crack at it. How to make the metrics meaningful? Okay, so Rajesh, yes?
Yeah. So I'll stand up for the benefit of this. So very good question, actually. So this was asked in one of my TMI assessments, right? So I've seen companies which follow 143 metrics, seriously speaking. So for different phases of this, they actually follow 143 metrics. But I've seen companies, one of the biggest IT service providers, provide only 2 metrics, right? So do you need to follow all matrices? No, simple answer. But what metrics to follow is a difficult question to answer. So there are 2 drivers for this. So the first metric, so you have to go down to the purpose of metric itself. Why are you actually measuring a metric? You need to measure something which you need to track and deliver. So your defect rejection ratio or compatibility. So what metric, there's no underlying principle. So I'll give 2 guidelines for this. So you're developing a software for a purpose, which is the end user. So if the end user says, I'm having my software, I need to have complete, all my functionality which I want in the software should be developed. If his stated need, whatever the stated need of the customer that the software developer has to do, that has to be a metric. It can be anything. It can be, his stated need might be, I don't worry about the functionality, but I want the software developed and delivered to me in the next 2 weeks. Metric could be a scheduled slippage. I want all the functionality which I developed to there, then functionality coverage will be 1 metric. I want 0 defects in my metric. I don't want any defects in my metric, then defects will be a metric. So the drivers for metric should always be, the first driver should be your business. What is your business need? That has to be, it can convert to different metrics, right? You need to define what is the metric which feeds the business level. That is the first driver. Perfect. Second metric. Organization-wide, there might be some metrics which you need to follow because that is a minimum SLA that an organization needs to follow. Like your effort variance, schedule variance, you might have a metric. If it is an organization-wide metric, which is really needed for the organization to be successful, you need to use the second metric. And the third part is your project related. There might be something which you are, for example, I have a real scenario where they are following minimum metrics, but there are a lot of requirements creepage into the product. Though it was not a business need, though it was not a company-wise need, that project had a real burnout because requirements used to come infrequently, very frequently without any control. So they actually introduced a metric for requirement volatility, which control their design and execution. So some metrics are different. So only these metrics should be used, which are based on need and how I'm going to use it. Any metric which you are not using, it does not contribute to any of the thing, I think you should keep it in the parking lot. If it's not used for 2-3 months, dispose it.
So let's go to the next table.
Yeah.
So
Sorry, I have one more, on a more lighter note. I think you put 8 hours in your timesheet for metrics collection and give it to your manager and see what he or she says.
Or try the other one. Put 0 hours every day and see what happens. Different questions.
So you can pick one, only one.
Just pick up one question? Okay. Okay, the other 2 are technical. I take up the first question, which you had said. So this is a universal question. So his question was, in any testing life cycle, area, there is usually a development from resistance from the development team, regardless of what the testing team does. So a testing team might bring in a lot of new processes or testing methods because of the market need. It can be regulatory compliance or it can be because of the client need. So the testing team has ownership of doing that, ensuring that thing is, because of which we introduce a lot of new process, we do testing for that, which the development team always feels is a overhead. And usually there's a resistance from the development team, regardless of what they do. So his question was this now, how do you bring this resistance down from the development team. He told this actually top-down, bottom-up approach. Top-down linear because you crack a whip, they have to follow. But he wanted a more, I think, involving and combined democratic way of bringing the resistance down. His question was, how do you bring down the development team's resistance towards what testing team does in a positive manner?
So Diwakar, you'd like to take the first crack at this question?
Okay. First of all, ban abusive words. Okay. No, I was just joking. Okay, you don't need to take everything I say very seriously. Okay. I think it's a mentality, right? It is largely thought of that if you are testers and I am developers, then it's their job to find defects. It's my job to code. I think that is itself a cultural shift that needs to happen, right? It is something that we as testers can influence more than what your managers can influence. Because sometimes you see developers coming from one line of management, testers coming from another line of management, right? And both have their own drivers, both have their own KRAs, if you will, right? I think what I have seen effectively working is stand-up meetings with testers, right? It is not anything to do with the project. It could do a lot with the project, but it's about trying to put each other's point across as to why something is a defect and why something is not. The basic premise of a fight is that is not a defect, okay? That is the first fundamental reaction any developer gets, right? That is not a defect. Now, there is a justifiable reason as to why it has been raised, or probably a wrong reason why it's been raised. But there has to be an admitting from both the sides. One of the things that I have noticed is an ideal way to do this is to have a defect call. Everybody sits down, discusses what is important. The thing that I have noticed is testers raise defects, give it over, and don't tell developers as to what priority they need defects fixed in, right? I mean, defects are there. Plenty of them, right? You just need to open the application, run through a few happy path scenarios. You can raise one potload of defects. So two things. One, is it a defect? Can we agree on that? Second, which are the ones that are most important for testers to continue their work the next day? Because no developer, whatever, I mean, I have noticed that the larger the team size, higher the number of defects, the less that defects get closed by the time a tester needs it, right?